Hey everybody, Scott and Matt here. It's Thanksgiving weekend and we're going to take the day off. Yes, we are.
But we're not leaving you hanging. So we're taking one of our most popular episodes of the year, which was one of the Joe McNally shows where he did some of the portrait blind critiques.
Yeah, not the one that we just did here a few weeks ago, but the one from like about a year ago. One of our most popular ever.
And so we're going to play that for you here today. Great show. Seriously, it's like, no matter how much you see and talk to Joe, it's like I always constantly learn stuff. And that's what it was with this show.
Oh, yeah. It was, I mean, the comments and things that people have said, even on YouTube, I think this is one of our highest viewed on YouTube. Because after we have the live broadcast and we run on Kelby TV, we also pop it up on YouTube. And it's gotten tons of views there. So we hope you'll enjoy this holiday episode. We also want to wish you and your family the very best if you are celebrating Thanksgiving. If you're watching us someplace else where you're not celebrating Thanksgiving, just eat a whole bunch of food, watch American football, and pass out.
And you can call it a thing. And then get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to the store and shop. And you can call it a Thanksgiving weekend.
Absolutely, because that's pretty much what we do. But we do all in all, we are very, very thankful to have such great sponsors, such wonderful viewers, and that you guys spend every Wednesday with us. And thanks goes to all of you, and we wish you and your family a very, very happy Thanksgiving. And now, enjoy Joe McNally. Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Grid. We are very excited to have our in-studio guest, very, very famous photographer, Joe McNally. And you're an HDR photographer?
That's my specialty. I don't do anything that's less than 7 or 8 exposures.
That's excellent. I'm curious about the 8 exposure HDR because now you shoot Nikon, if I remember.
I do.
And they only do like 7 and 9. So what's the trick to get the extra frame?
Well, you need it's a special menu function.
I can't even keep this up any longer. That was pretty good. I bet. All right. Well, everybody that's watching, you already know this is Joe McNally, one of the most famous photographers ever.
Lord.
So, Joe, fantastic to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So, are you kidding, man? So we are very excited because Joe was here today, and Joe and I have been talking about what are we going to talk about. I had originally thought Joe was going to be here last week, and it was my mistake, not Joe's, and that you were going to be a part of our blind critiques. And then so today I was able to convince Joe to do portrait critiques. We've got some great photographers who have sent their work in today, and we're going to have to jump right into it because Joe cannot be here for the whole show. Joe's got to catch a flight because you're going to do an HDR workshop, aren't you, in Moab?
In Siberia, actually.
Siberia.
It's a very there's so far there's 0 participants, but I figure I'll be out there accompanied by all my exposures.
Okay, so. Cricket. So, Joe, hey, I know you've been doing a lot of work this year for National Geographic.
I have. I just finished a story for them that's, as they say, in the pipe. It'll be published in the fall, so I can't really discuss it, but it was a pretty topical thing and a lot of fun to do. I actually have 2 stories sort of in the wings right now, waiting, and been pretty involved with them this year.
You shot for them like 35 days?
Yeah, so far this year.
That's
about 30.
A lot of shooting for any magazine.
Absolutely. I mean, Geographic still gives you the leeway to investigate a topic pretty thoroughly.
Wow, that's cool. Now, you're going to be, you've got a kind of a cool geographic-related project coming up on your blog.
Yes, I'm going to write next week. There's a thing called the Photo Society, the photosociety.com, and it's a group of photographers who have done prominent work for the Geographic for the last 20 years or so, and that's actually the price of admission to be part of this website. So it's called the Photo Society, and it's representative of all these photographers. Hence, there's some really varied and wonderful work. And the cool thing is, the thing that I really enjoy about it, they have a section called Reality Check, because everybody thinks it's like, oh, National Geographic, it must be wonderful shooting for National Geographic. And it is. But there's these vignettes that all the photographers have written. Like, I've had malaria 52 times. I was arrested at gunpoint 17 times. I was,
you never think about that side of all this stuff.
And I almost died in a motorized hang glider that flipped upside down and dropped into an icy river. I mean, these kinds of just vignettes, the reality of actually trying to do these stories, because honestly, the stories are out on the edge, which is where you have to go to get the pictures. And the results are in the magazine, and they're wonderful, but the process process of doing it is anything but safe or glamorous.
And you've done that, Joe. You've told me stories of things that you did when you did the thing for Geographic last year, where you're stepping out of this helicopter. Joe's telling me these stories, and I'm like, there isn't a story in the world. I don't care what it paid. I don't care. It has me stepping out onto that thing in the air up 400 feet. I mean, it was just, you're telling me this story, and my jaw's dropping. Hey, I want to get onto this, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows. So Joe's blog is joemcnally.com/blog, right?
Right.
And so we'll be looking for that next week. Now, I wasn't going to announce this today, but since you're here, I think it's kind of appropriate. We're talking about National Geographic. I just signed a contract with National Geographic.
Really?
I did.
Really?
So I get 12 issues for $19.95, like one every month. So I'm pretty excited, It's like, it was a really good deal. If you looked at it, it was one of those things where, it comes right to your mailbox. You don't have to go to the newsstand or anything. It's the whole magazine. It's in print, and you also get a discount on the digital one. So I was pretty psyched.
Cool. Congratulations on
Thanks,
becoming
man.
a member of the society, Scott.
Thank you. All right, let's get to work. Oh, hold on. Oh God. Oh no. All right. For those of you who watched last week, I was going to talk about this later, but I guess we're getting to it now. So Nancy is Nancy, who's normally here, our I don't know what Nancy is. She's our French ambassadoress of love. Nancy is taking a break, so she's going to be gone for about 6 weeks. She's doing a whole thing with the French Foreign Legion. But in her place, sadly, as French as you can be, Mr. Pete Collins.
Oh, bonjour.
Bonjour,
Comment
monsieur.
ça va? Mais oui.
Pete, you do a remarkably good imitation of a French woman.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you what,
I learned from the best, Joe. I learned from you.
I feel like I've been just transported straight to I can tell you right now, I last week I said we're really going to miss Nancy. I cannot emphasize today how much we are going to miss Nancy, but she will be back. But in her place, all the way from Quebec, from Montreal, from any place that really isn't in France, Pete Collins. All right, Joe, let's look at some images. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So if we'll jump, here we go. So this is, now I can show you them one by one. I can take you through the 5. What do you want to do? Just kind of.
Let's take it one by one. Let's go after it.
All righty.
Okay, some strong stuff going on. It's bigger up in here. Strong stuff going on. There's converging lines. You basically have a graphical triangle that the mountains in the background are making with the sky. Good positive stuff. River, all that sort of leading line stuff is working. The thing that's a little rough for me is that she's bullseyed, and if this is a portrait, I don't really know her. I mean, she's kind of out in this field. She is partially obscured with her hair and what looks to be kind of a blue flower, and also the gesture with her leg where she's pulling up her skirt and sort of showing her leg to the camera. It's a bit awkward. It's not particularly elegant. So sense of light and drama is good. Sense of the starkness of shadow to light works pretty well. But the centrality of the picture, the idea of a portrait, is not coming through to me particularly well. She's in middle distance in the frame, and she's also bullseyed. And on top of that, I don't really see her or meet her.
So, Joe, when you say bullseye, you mean she's in the center of
She's in the center.
She's in the dead center. It's why they call it the dead center.
Right. Which is not necessarily always, a faux pas. Pete, you picking up on that?
Oh.
That's French.
That's French,
Yeah.
Pete. Rules are made to be broken, obviously. So sometimes bullseye composition is absolutely the way to go. But in this particular instance, I feel like she's removed from the camera and sort of dropped into the middle distance of the middle of the frame, and I'm having a hard time sort of seeing her.
Yeah, it would actually make a nice landscape.
It is, take her out of the picture. Here's the thing: if you take her out of the picture, you really do have a lovely, landscape.
Your critique gets much better if she's out of the picture. In other words.
Well, I'm not much of a landscape photographer, so.
Okay, good. Let's take a look at the next one.
Okay. Kind of cool. This is another picture where we've got leading lines to kind of this triangular, graphic, of the wall meeting the seam in the background. She's again in the center, in the foreground. This actually, to me, is more effective. possibly could be a personal prejudice for me because I tend to be less pastoral in my outlook and more, I tend to like urban or grittier images a little bit better. You got the graffiti going on. There's obviously splashed lighting on the graffiti art, and then there's a circle of light that's dropped on her, the model. Again, in terms of a classic portrait, is it really a portrait or a scene? It's an urban scene to me more so than a portrait.
So let me ask you, Joe, if you were there, how would you have shot this?
I might have pushed in a little bit and sacrificed a little bit of some of the dimensions of the photographs. I don't see necessarily where the windows up top are doing you a great deal of good. It's a nicely handled technical picture in the sense that the interior graphics and balance for exposure really pulls me in and also matches the clouds, which is a hard thing to do. You haven't blown that area out. If you had blown that area out up in the windows, that would be a really serious problem. Even now, though, even though the exposure is well balanced, my eye tends to travel upward into those clouds, into those windows, and I think it's not particularly necessary. Also, the starburst of the illumination that's up there, also pretty graphically powerful in terms of, your eye likes light and bright. Your eye immediately goes to something that's very bright in the frame. So I travel past her and I go to that spectral highlight in the upper left, and I find myself, I want to stay with her. I'm curious about her. And again, I'm sort of not allowed to be because she is just one of a whole array of competing elements. This is like grab bag of a photograph. It's splashy, it's wonderful color and all that sort of stuff. But the essential mission, if you want to call this a portrait, I think is getting lost in the wash here.
Wow, very good. Thank you, Joe. Excellent. Here's another one. Same photographer.
Same photographer. Okay, cool. So it looks like we're backstage here. I love backstage. Here's the thing about being a photographer. You got to get backstage. You got to get off in the wings someplace. I always fight for that with any sort of performance situation because, let's face it, somebody with $50 can go and sit there in the audience and see exactly the show. So if you stand at a vantage point in the audience and shoot what's on stage, you're just showing me that which I can see for the price of admission.
Exactly.
What I want you to do as a journalist is get deeper, get underneath the non-glamorous part of performance, backstage. I've been on big shows in Broadway. You can't believe the disarray of the dressing rooms, how shoddy they are. It's hectic back there. I love that kind of light, and I want to see it. So this is the beginnings of that. Now, the guy who looks like he's kind of combing his hair and stuff in the background, to me, my eye doesn't know where to go here in the sense of, do I go back to him? Do I stay with her? They're both dressed in the same color palette, in the vibrant red, which is a good thing, but also the walls are extremely bright. So what's happening here is it looks like there's a flat wash of light that's addressing the whole scene. So in other words, there's no variation to the exposure landscape. It's as bright on the edges, which is not that important, as it is on my subjects, which presumably is the most important thing.
How's that?
That looks a little better. Yeah, that keeps me tighter.
How's that? So look at the difference, Joe. There's.
Wow. Yeah, I taught Scott how to do that right before the program.
Yeah, thank you.
Started. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
No,
and this is what, camera raw? Okay, yeah.
Okay. But seriously, when you're looking into a mirror like this, here's the magic of being an artist behind the scenes. When she's doing her makeup, I'm going to presume that there has to be makeup mirror lights or something. And part of that is the magic. And that's oftentimes, it means that the glow of light comes from the mirror itself. And it oftentimes has a color, an incandescent or warm glow. Here, there's no glow. There's flat lighting, and it's coming from the direction of the lens. So it tends to be a record now, and it falls away from me. I would very much like her to be bathed in light that's coming from the mirror, and that would have more of the magic of her looking at herself and sort of loving herself and wanting to get ready to go on stage and have a whole bunch of people love her. The thing about being a performance artist is that you want that kind of, glow and attention, and so this rendering is kind of flat and harsh to convey that kind of magic. Does that make sense?
Dude, it makes too much sense. You look at things in such an amazing way. And because I can look at it and go, well, yeah, the light's kind of harsh around the edges, because that was the first thing I saw. I saw that it over here, it looks like the flash is spilling over into areas.
Right.
But you were thinking so far beyond. Like you are really, because I think this captured you. This is your kind of shot. But then you're thinking about telling this story, and we're just thinking about lighting her.
Right. I mean, there is a story going on here, and again, there's so many competing elements that are pulling me away from the central core of the story. Like, I'm immediately entranced, actually, by either of these people. Mostly her, obviously, because she's up front and the leading lady, if you will. I want to know more about her instantly. I want to know, I want to see her in silhouette before she goes on stage. I want to know, is she a singer? Is she a dancer? Is she a performance artist? What are they getting ready for? All that sort of stuff. And I know you can't sum that up. I mean, this is a piece of the story puzzle, but it's the opening of the door. And I love stories about people like this because I very much admire stage and theater people because they're just so bloody talented. And that's why I stand in awe of dancers. I look at them and they work so hard to create this illusion, this magic, this flight that us mere mortals are not capable of, that I kind of...
Hey, by the way, you do that exact same thing for photography. I know that, you're doing what a buddy of mine does. He looks at other people that are really talented and goes, man, now that guy's got it together and he's the best in the world at what he does. And I always slap him out and I go, you're the best at what you do, And so here's the thing is, if they were fans of photography, the people that you so admire walking out on stage would go, oh, that was Joe McNally. Oh my God, I love that guy. So I hear what you're saying, but you're like, they're from another planet. I'm listening to your critique of this and I'm thinking you are from another planet. It's a brilliant insight into this stuff.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. But actually, one of the wonderful things about being a photographer is that you're oftentimes sent to go and photograph somebody precisely because they're so good at what they do. So you get to be Jay Maisel. We all know Jay. Yeah. You know what he says about being a photographer? It's a license to steal experience. So you don't become an expert, but you have this glimmer into all these worlds, this glancing touch with amazing array of talent and worlds, just because you got a camera in your hand. Cool.
Wow. Let's look at a couple more. But Joe, these are so insightful. I'm absolutely loving this.
Okay. All right. It's a nicely, the feeling of calm immediately, imparts to me from this photograph. And there's a very languid pose. There's a serenity to the model.
She's languid.
She's languid. And she's lit with a luminous light source.
A luminous light source, Joe. You can see it.
However, again, I'm left with a bit of a mystery. Is this a portrait or is it a fashion shot? She's out there with a gown and a fur. She's also, the thing that's really making me curious is that she's so elegantly dressed, but it seems like that's a cardboard box that she's sitting on or holding, or it looks like a file box or something.
Yeah. Like an apple crate or something.
And there's a sign on the side of it and stuff like that. The foreground, there's a kind of an unfortunate splash of light on the foreground. That right. Grass and that is not particularly positive. I would say that. The skirt.
That better?
Yeah, that's much better. Keeps me in the photograph a little bit better. One thing I do love about the background is the color palette. There's a very muted green back there, which is really very serene color and very powerful to me. I like that a lot. Her head and her hair are placed in an appropriate way. She's got blonde hair, so she pops against the darkness of that background. So that is handled really well. But again, it's not definitive or declarative to me. The gown itself, the way it drapes, creates a very powerful, there's like a triangle of graphic, and I refer to triangles because they are very powerful shapes graphically when you array them in a photograph, and they will play ping pong with your eye if you use them well. This one actually is pointing me down, and it's pointing me down into kind of a bleached area of the grass, and my eye tends to linger down there. So in other words, what I'm feeling is that you're making my eye work awfully hard to find her. That's all.
Perfect.
But I think it's a lovely scene.
Last one from the same photographer.
Okay, cool. I don't completely know what they're doing. Is that kind of grass? Is this a barn or? Sure. There's kind of a flash in the background. It seems like they might be dancing. The gentleman who's holding her is again blocking me from getting to her.
I can't really see what.
It's a large area of black that I'm getting. I'm just running right up against? I mean, is this a picture of this guy's back? Is it a picture of her? Obviously, it's a picture of her. The clasp of her hand on his neck is somewhat awkward. I would have loved it if the hand had drifted down and broken up that black. Presumably, she might be dancing with him. Could she drift that arm down and become more of a human element in that sea of black? If he had turned backwards into her and maybe even nuzzled her. Can I demonstrate? No.
Yeah, no, we're good.
I could see then his profile and his face, and I would become more intrigued by the photograph. And again, it feels like a lot of these are coming up, and they look like eye-level middle distance, and that's a one-way ticket to boredom in your photography, because if you're going to do a portrait of somebody, I want you to grapple with them. I want you to move in. I want you to show their world to me, who they are, and what they mean to you. Here, it's, to me, and I don't mean to be harsh here, it feels like an indifferent framing. It feels like you just stood back, and maybe it's a little bit of lack of confidence in terms of getting close to these folks. Maybe it's an uncertainty on the part of the photographer. Which way do I take this picture? That's translating into my feelings, which are equivalently uncertain about whether I'm all that interested in it.
Right. All right, so Joe, two things. If you had to give some advice to this photographer overall, it would be...
I would get closer. I would get more definitive. I would push in harder. I would stop putting people consistently in the middle of your frame. I would resolutely give myself an assignment to say, okay, I'm going to do some rule of thirds today and just see what that feels like. Because consistently these pictures have been bullseyed.
Bullseyed, yeah. And
that would be something I would really, really work with. And actually, before you start to get multiple elements in the photograph, like the last photograph had 2 faces, this has got 2 characters, I would deal with the face. I would come in, find somebody I'm emotionally attached to, and just make a simple, beautiful portrait and take that step.
Wow. All right, Joe, thank you. That was excellent. We're actually going to take a short break. When we come back, of course, we're going to go on. But before we take the break, Joe, somebody asked a question. C.J. Evans posted a question to you, and I think it's a question that I want to hear answered too, because I think it's terrific. So C.J. Evans asked, Joe, how do you find the story of a given subject?
Good question. It can be in a variety of ways. I guess you could reply to that. First and foremost, everybody's got a story, right? If you're assigned to do something, or if you gravitate towards someone and say, I really want to photograph you, you're obviously intrigued. You're intrigued by their physical appearance, which obviously is intertwined with their life, those kinds of things. At Geographic, what is absolutely paramount for a photographer to do prior to going in the field is research. And I would recommend that across the board. Even if you're photographing, the grandmother of the year or the teacher of the year or something that's really inherently local, there's information out there on the web, wherever you can find it. When you do that kind of research about someone's background, it makes them understand that you did your homework and that you are genuinely curious about them. It also, just on a practical level, gives you a little grist for chit-chat, kind of that awkward first interface before you pull the camera out of the bag. It's like, okay, now I'm going to photograph you at least for 5 minutes, whatever it might be. It could be cursory time, just like, hey, how you doing? Oh, so you're a father, right? You've got 2 boys, and the subject is like, oh, okay, yeah. And so this guy really is kind of interested in me, and it opens the door in the person's head to receive you a little more graciously. That is an important and powerful thing to do as a photographer, is be sincerely curious, because people have a really good meter nowadays. There's so much media out there that, like, if you walk in and you're not really on it and you're not really interested, they'll pick up on that right away.
Wow.
So I do.
That's wonderful advice.
I try to do all my reading before. When I photograph celebrities, I watch all their movies, every single thing they've ever done. Even the really bad stuff.
Really?
And what happened to me on a shoot once? I knew her movie so well. It was years ago. I was photographing Michelle Pfeiffer, and she got a little feisty on the set. She's a lovely lady, but she was kind of joking with me, and she went into kind of a New York accent. She did a movie called Married to the Mob, where she was kind of this mob girl from Long Island, and she kind of went, Joe, I'm not sure about you, or something like that. And I looked right back at her, and I had memorized Alec Baldwin's reply to her at one point in the movies, and I went, honey, Relax. After all, you got your game shows, you got your girlfriends. And she came right back to me and she said, Joe, I want a divorce. And we just like riffed into the movie. And we got past a little bit of a difficult thing on the set because she was a little concerned about the light and the makeup and stuff like that. And just a little humor got us by. But I was able to pull that out of my brain because I had researched her movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Let's take a short break. We had a great set of shots coming up. We are live with Joe McNally. We're doing blind portrait critiques. We'll be right back right here on the grid.
I'm Mike Cabasi. Come watch my new video on Kelby Training. I'm going to teach you how to do the old Hollywood 30s and 40s newer style lighting, the portraits, the stuff with the hard lights, the shadows. I'm going to teach you how to interact with the model, how to pose her. We're going to talk about an apple box. I'm going to teach you about grapology, a C-stand. What is it? What's the difference between a glamour shot and a Hollywood headshot? We're going to use lighting. We're going to use diffusion. Make the light turn, create separation, give it a 3D look. So check out my class on kelbytraining.com.
Hey everybody, Tony Corbell. For me, it's always been about light control. It's light quality, light quantity, light direction. Think about the light tools that we have to work with. Sunlight, ambient light, portable flash, studio lights. There's not one tool that is sort of everything to all pictures. You really do have to have a variety of light shaping tools. And in this case, we're going to look at several of them. If we can take those 4 tools of light and understand all the controls that we have, what we can do with our photography is unlimited. We can do anything that we want once we understand the foundation of our craft. I hope you'll tune in. We've got a lot more things in store for you here at kelbytraining.com.
Hey, we're back here with Joe McNally. We're doing some blind critiques. I want to get on to the next one, but I just also want to thank MPix, our sponsor. I actually will be talking about this after Joe's gone, but I have a kind of MPix did a cool deal for something that I did last night about my trip to Cuba, and since it's for 4 days, I'm going to let you guys know about it a little later. But big shout out to MPix. They're an online photo lab, a wonderful online photo lab. It's the one we all use here, and so great people and incredible customer service, wonderful product. Go to mpix.com if you want to have anything printed. They print up to 24 by 36 prints. If you get it there by 11 in the morning here in the U.S., they have it to you the next day.
Whoa.
All right, Joe, here we go.
Okay.
Back to Joe. All right, so we have 5 different images here, I think, and this is a different photographer.
Okay. All right. Okay. Interesting guy. Intense face, and I don't disagree with the light on the face. I think, to get mildly technical here, I think this kind of screams for some sort of rim, even the subtlest hint of highlight off of that jacket to separate his shoulders. His shoulders and his hair fade into darkness. Also, it looks a little bit like you might be too close to him with maybe a 50 and a 50 millimeter lens.
It looks distorted?
It looks a little distorted to me. And this guy's got, he's got a sizable nose. Let's just put it out there.
Would you use the word schnoz, Joe, though?
Every once in a while I say schnoz.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I have an Irish pug. This looks like somebody took some silly putty and threw it against the wall. So anyway, there.
I disagree.
There.
I'm up close and I think it's beautiful.
But this gentleman is an interesting, intense face. I like the eyes. He's got deep set eyes, and there's an intensity there that I really enjoy. The gesture, okay, cool. I mean, that is oftentimes a cool thing to do, is to get somebody just to do something in an absent-minded way to take their mind off the fact that they're being photographed. So kudos to you for doing that. But I think it does fall down in the sense that he recedes, and you've done him a bit of disservice. I think, given the intensity of that face, I would not have let this guy get off the set until I got my 70 to 200 out, popped some really intense light into those eyes, and came in really tight, because this guy's got, one of those faces that could go on Mount Rushmore. It's got angularity and power.
Great.
Okay, cool. You can speak to this better than I can, Scott. What the pitcher's mound looks a little strange to me, or is that just the TV that we're looking at?
No, it's not the normal color that I think that you would think for a pitcher's mound, which would normally be like like almost a mud color, a reddish mud or clay color. Right. And this looks like red. So, taking apart the color's a little funky.
Okay.
What do you think of the portrait?
Good intensity. I like the array of clouds in the background. It looks to me like one of those soft light days that the photographer has applied the light well up front, in the sense that there's that muted sort of beautiful color palette of the white and the blue in the sky, and then the green in the background. Now, given that the red earth of the pitcher's mound and the red of the the base path in the background there, that red stripe is really, really strong. It's like a stoplight running right through the photograph. And I would, if I could, I would mute that. What the photographer, something along those lines. And
Not exactly the best color correction, but
Yeah.
that's just pulling back the intensity a little bit.
I think the photographer's done a good job in keeping attention up in the face, because what could have happened here very easily is you could have bleached out those trousers. Be very careful with that. Now, in terms of gesture, if this is the way the kid addresses, like a stretch, if he's got a runner on base, that sort of tension, again, I feel like there could be some more drama to the gesture, in the sense that the ball's a little bit hidden. I would love to maybe have him come up, and be a little more powerful. If his arms came up into here, he would break up the monochrome blue up in here, and it might collect the portrait a little bit better. Right now, his arms being down, again, they create a pretty powerful graphic line that goes downward. And I want to stay at his face. So maybe think about working a bit tighter, and maybe think about collecting his arms up in here the way a pitcher does. And that way, by having his arms up in here, you more naturally gravitate with those lines that his arms create and stay up in his face. That might be a suggestion I would make.
Great. All right, here's the next one. Now, does this photographer have wildly diverse styles?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
what? Like, did this guy really do this and this?
Yeah.
So, but okay.
Wild. Okay. All right. So as opposed to the first Businessman, now we're on, which was low key. This is high key stuff. The nice thing, or the thing that I like about this, is the dress sort of looks organic. It looks like it's almost alive, like something out of a James Cameron movie that's, in the garden that's growing on her or something like that. And she definitely looks kind of, wood nymphy or something like that. I mean that in the best possible way.
I would say wood nymphy was the exact right. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
wood
she's
nymphy.
kind of, she's a bit of a, I have an active imagination. What can I say? And her eyes are actually pretty cool and pretty riveting. I would say, in terms of an overall studio portrait, this is pretty well done. Pretty well done. Okay, backlight, wonderful thing to work with. Strong backlight to this. Handled well, okay? She's kind of the gobo. The photographer's doing the smart thing of using their subject's body as at least partially blocking some flare or hiding the lens behind it. There is a bit of flare back there, which works pretty well. Again, she's shading, perhaps maybe edge her a little bit to the left of the frame. She is edging again towards the middle of the frame, but there's good pastoral feel to all of this. Again, is it a portrait, or is it a look at these clothes? As a fashion picture,
So what about her third arm? What are your feelings about that?
I was going to talk a little bit about the way that the busyness of the wardrobe detracts from kind of the attention I can give to her face and her body, her shape. I mean, obviously this is a picture of her shape, and it's kind of a cardigan with stripes, and then this kind of paisley, or forgive me, my fashion terms are ridiculous, but it's a very busy dress. And the sweater doesn't go with it. So if you're going in the fashion direction, I don't think that's a good wardrobe necessarily for her to put her in. If you're going for a portrait, then the wardrobe definitely works against you, because it's so bloody busy that I'm having a hard time getting to her, which is too, it makes me feel badly about it, because I want to like this picture a lot, because the photographer did a great job staging it. It's very pastoral, has a really nice feel.
Yes.
And I think these kinds of details are the easy ones to fix. So that's what I always say when folks in a critique, when somebody meets somebody on the street, and they get past that threshold of like, I'm going to ask this stranger to photograph them. And then they get inside the fence and they start working, and then they shoot 3 frames and move on, and the frames aren't very successful. I say to them, dude, you did the hard part. Well, the hard part was getting inside the fence. The hard part was sucking it up and going after that person saying, I really want to photograph you. And then once you got past it, got across that bridge, you let it go. You got nervous again or something, and you walked away. And once you get there, just work the hell out of it. Can I say that on this program?
Oh yeah, we say hell all the time.
Oh, cool.
We say worse than that.
Okay, really? All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
Oh,
ever since you were on our first episode, we had a set of criteria before, and then once you were on, I think you said the S word and maybe F a couple times. We were like, okay, you can say whatever you want.
I set the bar pretty low. In other words,
it was. I think it was episode 3. I think it was.
But my hat's off to you for staging a nice photograph. I think it falls down in the details, and it hurts my ability to enjoy a portrait or really feel like it's a portrait.
All right. Hey, Joe, because I want to get to some more photographers, and you have to leave soon, your overall impressions of this photographer?
I would say that there's an interesting array of work. I would love it if you could work with one subject, for instance, and instead of the thing that the internet and digital makes us is, to a degree, single-shot photographers. Make a nice picture and move on. So I would love to see an array of pictures that have an interconnection. I look at those pictures. Say I'm a picture editor, and I look at those pictures. I don't know what to assign you to, because it's such a grab bag of stuff. There's no emotional cohesiveness. There's no like declarative thing like, I do this really well, and this is what I love to do, so assign me to more of it, you idiot picture editor. That's what,
No,
so
that's great advice.
If I look at something as a picture editor, if I have a job in my bag and I want to give it out to a photographer, am I going to give it to you? Probably not, because I can't tell from that array of pictures exactly who you are or what you do well.
Yeah. Very good. Wonderful advice. All right, Joe, next one. We're going to move through these a little quicker.
Sorry, I'm getting chatty.
No. Dude, I wish
See, I love.
If you didn't have a flight, we would have an incredible, because we would go over our hour if you didn't have a flight. Oh. So, but what I'll do is I'm not going to show as many photos from the same photographer, so we can I'll catch more. Here, okay. New photographer, new shot.
Okay, cute kid. Definitely a cute kid. The portrait, the joy of the portrait, the beauty of it is in that young lady's face. And it looks to me like she's got braces,
yep.
And she's in that kind of, wonderful, beautiful, awkward stage of adolescence, But you're not letting me enjoy it all that much, because my eye is traveling to the rock up top. There's evidently some sort of gate in the background. Maybe we're in a playground, something like that. The way her hip is posed, that's also taking off exposure-wise. This is in desperate need of a tighter frame, first off, and maybe a little bit of vignetting or something that's pulling the power of the surroundings down relative to her.
Would you go this tight or not quite this tight?
Yeah, I would go this tight. I mean, part of the fun of this is actually the braces. Now, she's actually, I salute this kid. What I do know about this kid already, which is very cool, is that she's pretty confident of herself and her looks, because most teenagers, if they've got braces on, they're like, oh, don't shoot
right,
me smiling,
Right.
She's like, hey, I got braces and I'm cool with it, and here I am, and she's very confident at the camera, and I instantly love that about her.
Very good.
Okay, cool. Mom and daughter, I'm presuming. Again, kind of blown out. Difficult to see. The arm of the young lady, the young girl who's hanging on to mom there, is really, really bleached out, really hot, and that detracts from my enjoyment of the picture. Also, the young girl, there's a space between their heads. If I was working with this, I would try to get their eyes at camera. I would try to get their heads closer to each other. The young girl is looking off and away, and it makes me look that way. And that, coupled with the heat of the arm, is pulling me out of the centrality of the photograph. Okay, not too much to say about this. It's a very tight headshot of what looks to be actually a pretty interesting guy. And it's pleasant and all that sort of stuff, but there's absolutely no environment and there's no storytelling power. This could be, the postage stamp headshot on a bio page of a corporation or something like that.
Right.
Here's our CFO or something like that.
All righty, let me grab another one here. It'll take me just a moment. We already saw that one. How about this?
Cool. Interesting crop. I think, again, the heaviness of the hat relative to a black background and all of that heavy, dark hair, I think there needs to be some sort of rim or backlight. But innovative crop. I have to imagine that she's perhaps a dancer or a theater person or something like that, kind of sparkly hat and very, very, meticulous makeup. The eye is pretty riveting, you know?
Good eye. Yeah. The it looks over retouched on the skin, which is not really that's not the photography part of it, but it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy softening on someone who's very, very young.
Without the backlight, without the dimension of something that's rounding out the hat and the hair, despite the heaviness of the makeup or the drama of the makeup, the photograph feels a little flat to me.
Yeah. Okay, Joe.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh, wow.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? That person, whoever this photographer is going to put that quote on there. Joe McNally saw my photos and said, ooh, wow.
Yeah. Well, there's a comment over here. Kevin Halliburton says, Joe needs to do a class titled Bantering with Your Subject.
I agree.
Now, I don't know about this lady, if she's bantering with her subject. What can I say? Depending on what is this? Why was this picture made? I'm struggling with that a little bit. It's cool. I mean, I love the fact that pictures exist just because you wanted to do something cool and all that sort of stuff. That's great. But I always look for a backstory. I always look for something that connects to something else. So in this instance, the skull, I don't really get to meet her. I don't necessarily have a basis for meeting the skull. The light, if you're going to go really macabre and sort of like gothic, the light doesn't match that mood. The light is kind of open and clean light as opposed to something that's really dramatic and has, maybe a ghoulish power to it. So interesting, but I would really want this to go someplace else and pull me along with it,
So they're not going to publish the second quote that says, why was this photo made? They'll probably use the Joe McNally said, ooh, wow.
Cool by me.
All right, last one from this photographer.
Okay.
Baby, it's a baby.
Baby's cute. I mean, all babies are cute, right? But this is not a particularly cute photograph. It feels a little heavy to me for a rendering of an infant, and what I really kind of miss about it is kind of the totality of the face. The little hand is cute, but it's blocking a great deal of the face, and there's the loop of the sleeve and everything down. It's all kind of powerful going out of the frame down this way, and I really want to I'd like to see the whole baby's face, and I'd like the light to be a lot sweeter. It looks a little heavy and
like Hollywood lighting on a baby.
Yeah, it's like George Harrell meets a baby.
George Harrell meets a baby. All right, let me grab another one or two here. Mr. Joe. All right, here we go. It's interesting.
Okay, cool. This is reminiscent to me of, or a style of lighting that, the name has gone a little bit out of vogue called, you might refer to this as hatchet lighting. Where you have light that's clipping in from the sides. Is anybody familiar out there with Arnold Newman's famous portrait of Krupp, the German industrialist? Now, he made, through the virtue of color and light, Arnold made Krupp look like a reptilian version of the devil. And it is light like this that he applied. The balance of light in this kind of portrait is very important, and it looks like the light on the camera left side of the face is a little overplayed in here, and the light on the other side is maybe underplayed. So you have to be careful of that in terms of making sure that this picture is all about symmetry, right? See the way the hands come in, they keep you in the frame, they come together like this, and then there's the nose, and the centrality of the photograph is all about symmetry, and the light is not symmetrical. Right. And hence the eyes are not shaded in a symmetrical fashion. Right. And so if you're going to light to dramatic effect like that, I think you have to be really intensely careful, because God is in the details of that, and it's got to be right. But so, Joe, I think good subject matter, and good, nicely handled.
Then? So if they wanted to go with this and they didn't want to do the balanced, would it have been better if this had been less light? to where it was obviously you're not trying to balance it? Because it's off by just enough that I think it does look weird, right?
Yeah, no, honestly, I think if you lose either side of that face, you lose the portrait. And so I think you have to bring that camera right side back up to the intensity of camera left.
Very good.
Because the eyes are what rivets.
All right, Joe, here's one. Ooh, wow.
Is this all from the same photographer?
No, this is a new photographer. So the
okay.
baby one was the last from the other photographer. So this is.
I don't know if this is a portrait. Obviously a cadaver with a guy with kind of a creepy silhouette.
Would you like to try a different photo?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I mean, my hat's off to, you might have a different view, but I mean, obviously there's a fair amount of post-processing getting done here. So that's the thing about me, is that I salute that art form without really knowing a great deal about how difficult it is, or if it's all that particularly well done. I'm not sure if this is one frame? Is it an assemblage? I'm not sure of that. I do like the intensity. I do like the way the spin of the background, all that sort of stuff keeps you there. There is this intensity of the boxer dude and his hair and all that sort of stuff. Is that coming from the act of photography, or is it coming from the act of post-production? This is a photograph where I find myself a little bit at sea, in the sense that, I recognize the graphic impact of it and all of that. Where does that come from? Does it come from the camera and the photographer's skill in engaging and staging the photograph, or does it come from the aftermath of the photograph and really working it into something else? You would be able to speak far more intelligently about that than I could.
Let's Joe, we don't have much time, and this will be your last one. Let me just real quickly, don't go to the camera here. I'm gonna just show you the collection, and you show me which one you want to do last. So keep the camera on. I don't know, put it on, like, do we have a video clip of Brad running through a field? There you go.
No, don't do that.
There you go. No, leave the clip right there, because we're gonna have some giveaways and stuff, and this is the guy that's gonna be running it. But Pete, will you entertain them with your wit and stuff? I'm gonna let Joe pick which one he wants to do.
Oui.
Here's another one.
I will do origami.
Let's go back to two before. Why don't we do the young lady with the violin, maybe? And maybe the
don't do that
guy
one.
with the.
Okay, so
let's do those two.
All right, we got two.
They look
All
like
right.
environmental portraits.
All right, we are back. We've got two more for Joe, and then Joe is literally going to have to race to the airport. So, all right,
sorry.
Joe.
I'm sorry for that. It's just Delta Airlines.
I know how Delta is. You don't check your bags in 45 minutes before your flight. No, Delta actually does 30 in Tampa. They're pretty good.
They're pretty good.
Yeah,
okay,
they're great.
Cool. All right.
45 is United.
Okey-doke.
And it's sad that I know either one of those.
Life on the road. I picked these two because we're doing portraits, and these are portraits. The young violinist, and I think the light is a little bit hard for her, but the essential thing the photographer's done that's pretty powerful is render her in the wardrobe works well. It's the simplicity of gesture, and he has brought her out against this sky, which is not the easiest thing to do, and I think the photographer did it pretty well. There is kind of this harshness. It feels a little flat. It looks like the light is coming at her and illuminating her face, and really, this is a poetic thing, right? To play a violin. It's magical, it's lyrical, it's soft. There is detail not only in the violin itself, but in those who play it and the music. So I would want the light to match the magic of violin music, and that light is not particularly poetic. It's a little bit of a slam dunk of light, whereas I would have perhaps come around with a light that came from camera right and lit her profile so that she falls into shadow this way. The shadow gives her dimension, and there's a little bit of highlight line that maybe runs across the essential gesture of the photograph, which is the playing of the musical instrument.
Wow.
All right. See, this photograph is already a good photograph to me, anyway, out of the gate, because I look at it and it makes me chuckle.
Yeah.
And despite flaws, or whatever you want to talk about any photograph, if it grabs you by your emotions, if it engages you, makes you laugh, makes you cry, makes you think, makes you sad, then half more than half of the job is done, much more than that, really. So good job to this photographer in the sense that creating a photograph that's endearing, mildly humorous. A couple of really simple things that could have happened here, like that glaring highlight right at the middle upper edge of the frame, just a couple of millimeters tip like this, and those blaring highlights are gone, and you can do that right in the camera. You don't have to dot them out afterwards in Photoshop. The sheep, he's holding this like little baby lamb. I would have desperately tried to pick a baby lamb that didn't have like the blue paint on it. Makes me think like, okay, this one's going to market.
This one's marked for lunch.
I would have loved a little more endearing gesture where the subject picks the lamb up and holds it closer to his shoulders and his heart and his face. That way you get you're then able to get closer to the photograph. Here he's kind of like, it could be like, a handbag or a shotgun or something like that. And just kind of like, here I am and the little baby lamb's down here, all painted up, and we're just one step short of the barbecue here.
You see what Brad wrote? Farm animal graffiti is rampant in that town.
So the sweetness of the gesture, I think, would be improved if he grappled with the lamb a little bit and pulled it up and higher, and then I think, just a couple of small things like that would make the photograph a little more endearing. It's already endearing because I love the fact that this guy's got the hat on.
It is.
He's sort of sheep-like himself in a way. He's kind of got this thing going on like a woolly
good
cap.
Subjects.
Good subject, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, wonderful face and endearing subject matter. Nicely arrayed photograph. Rule of thirds is being employed pretty well. A couple of minor details, but it's an engaging portrait. I know something about this man now.
Very good. Joe, you're completely out of time. You're actually 5 minutes over. But can I tell you something? This has been some incredibly insightful stuff. And I'm not just saying that because you're Joe McNally, but you are Joe McNally. But anyway, seriously, I mean, Matt and I and RC and I, and we've had guests do critiques as well. And I think this will help us going forward, just have had you here today. The next time you're in town, you're here and I'll tell everybody up front, it's a 90-minute show. All right.
Let's do it.
One last thing before you go. We're getting ready to put you out on tour. You're going to, starting in Canada.
Yep.
You're doing a nationwide tour. Can you tell me just a little bit about the tour before you go?
Sure. It's Joe Unplugged, basically. Apologies to Bobby Lane. No, it's not. We're not using. Bobby does a wonderful thing with available light. She's a wonderful photographer. But when I say unplugged, it means Joe kind of. It's called the One Light, Two Light Tour. And I don't know how I got this, but I have a reputation for using lots of lights. I don't know where it came from.
Really? I have no idea why they would.
So we're doing the One Light, Two Light Tour. I say in the first paragraph of description for the tour, I say, well, maybe every once in a while, 3 lights. But mostly, like I did the taping, as you know,
Right.
the other day to kind of the basic template. And I spent almost, I would say 3.5 of the 5 hours I spent with one speed light, and we crafted a whole bunch of different looks from one speed light, and then we bounced it off of 2 and back and forth. So it's simple light done fast, hopefully done well, and lots of issues discussed along the way.
Fantastic. It kicks off in July. You're starting through Canada, then coming down to the United States.
Right. Yeah, we're not sure where we're going in the United States yet, but Canada is the start of it over in Vancouver on the West Coast.
Fantastic. Joe, I cannot thank you enough
Oh,
for
it's
being
been
on the
awesome.
show. This
Thank
was
you for having me.
absolutely wonderful. You are doing 90 minutes. It's going to be the only 90-minute grid show that we've actually planned from the beginning. I'm going to tell everybody Joe McNally's in town. 90 minutes. Wow. This was just absolutely stunning. Thank you very much. We're going to go to commercial break. We're going to have to open up a can of guest hosts because if not, I'll just be here by myself. We still have a few more things and some giveaways and some fun stuff. And we'll try to critique one more after you go. But thank you very much, Joe. And go to joemcnally.com to enjoy Joe's work. joemcnally.com/blog. You're on Twitter. You're on Facebook. He's everywhere. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, man.